Cinneah, how are you today?
Hey, how are you? Happy holidays.
Happy holidays to you as well, and Happy New Year coming up. What's
Yes.
going on? How does it feel to finally be financially free?
It feels really, I don't think I have words for it. It's almost like I can't believe it because it's been something that, I've been focused on for all of 2020. So to be just a few days shy of it is still, I don't think it's hit me. I really don't think it's hit me. It may take me a couple extra days for it to be like, oh, wow, I don't have another debt payment that I have to pay, you know? But it feels great.
So it hasn't fully sunk in, but just think about it. During a pandemic,
Yeah.
2020, like you just said, you paid off over $20,000 in debt.
Yeah.
What were the challenges of this year for you?
Oof, there were many. I think one of the biggest challenges was really in the beginning of the year, figuring out where I was going to make the extra income to be able to make it possible. So for anyone who doesn't know, even at the beginning of the year, I was a high earner, but I was also a high spender. So I had never lived on what essentially like 70% or less of my income ever, right? How I even got into debt was from overspending, living beyond my means. So I felt that I needed to make more money in order to be able to feel like I could comfortably achieve my debt payoff goals without having to drastically change my lifestyle, right? So I
And
think that was
that's
that was
not the case.
Mhm. What were you saying?
And that's not the case.
No, that was definitely a challenge at first. It was like I really didn't know where the money was going to come from. I just kind of put it out there that I wanted to make more money, and then I had to make the decision to leave my job in the middle of the pandemic, and move to a new company to increase my salary, to increase my income. And that was really what gave me the breathing room in my budget to be able to continue to do the things that brought me joy, like save for travel, and also still be able to aggressively pay down my debt. So I think that was definitely one of the biggest challenges. And I think the other challenge is honestly was just sticking with it, just staying consistent. Right? We're talking about money, and for so many of us, our spending triggers are around when we feel comfortable, when we want to just like, let our hair down, when we want to kind of like pig out and relax. And there were many moments where I just wanted to like, kind of be like, bump this, like I don't want to spend my money on something that's going to make me feel good right now. Like, right, we were in the house for months.
Right.
I was in New York, so that was ground zero for COVID. So it was just a really crazy time, especially in the spring, in the middle of the year.
How did you stay with it? I mean, you had so many changes. The world saw so many changes. You
Yeah.
were not only able to reach your goals, but you got a new job, and now you've surpassed your goals, and you've got more goals that you've set for next year, and you're
Yeah.
going for those. What was it like being so consistent and just driving every single day?
Honestly, consistency is something that I've always struggled with. And I really think that having the accountability from putting it out there on Instagram really helped because it was like, oh my gosh, it was all fine and dandy when I put it out there to like 50 of my closest friends and family, right? In January, like there was no one really following me on Instagram. It was really just friends and family. But as the year went on and as more people gravitated towards my story and my account, it was like, oh, there are a lot of people kind of, following up with me every month where I would post my debt payoff, friends and strangers alike just being like, whoa, you're doing it, keep going, like that was a sense of accountability for me that I really needed. And I think that really kept me going. And there were times where I was even like, took a step away from Instagram and people would reach out to me like either commenting or DMing me like, hey, where'd you go? Like, are you good? Is everything okay? Like, we want to keep hearing
We
from you.
need those tips. We
We
need
need
that
those
advice.
tips.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I think that really became part of it. And then honestly, what helped was starting to find joy and seeing my debt shrink. Round about like June or July, it just was like, whoa, okay, no, I'm not totally at my goal, but like, wow, I've still like made a considerable amount of progress towards this. Like, I can't give up now, but I think definitely having that accountability in terms of like the social media community that I built around this, and then just knowing that, okay, I don't want this work to have been in vain, really kind of helped me go at it. And I definitely wasn't perfect. There were definitely slip ups. I definitely had times where I wasn't exactly strict about sticking to my budget. Definitely had to kind of, be flexible and nimble at times, but I'm really proud of what I was able to do.
You now are like a social media darling and built your following, and there's so much to celebrate with you. We've got New Year's Eve coming up. You're at home for the holidays. The festivities are going around. How are you celebrating this huge milestone for the end of 2020?
Yeah, that's a great question, AJ. I will be celebrating by having a little staycation in NYC. That's kind of gonna be my gift to myself. That it's like, okay,
turn up.
It's gonna be a turn up, and it's like I've wanted to stay at like a hotel with like downtown views and floor to ceiling windows, that whole vibe.
Right.
That's my gift to myself. That's how I'm celebrating, not a fancy party, not necessarily a trip, but just like relaxation, rest, and just a kind of a chance to just have like a different view for the weekend. Yeah, that's how I'm treating myself. And I'm also celebrating with some friends in the debt-free community this week. We're doing like a virtual debt-free party,
Okay.
just to kind of come together and say, whether we're debt free, whether we've made a big dent in our debt or not, it's still worth celebrating. And in such a challenging year and tumultuous year like 2020, it can be bittersweet to become debt free, right? Because we can't do all this hoop and ha and, have a big party and do all these things. But to your point, it's still worth celebrating. It's still worth marking the end of this road.
I mean, well, I heard that ain't no party like a debt-free party. So we want to come and turn up with y'all in 2021 as well.
Yeah.
Where do we start if we're in debt? Many people are facing dire straits right now.
Yeah.
Student loans, rent payments, car payments. The economy has been hit by this pandemic. Yeah. How do we reverse some of these wrongs and go from in debt to the debt-free turn up in 2021?
Yeah, no, that's great. That's a great question. One starts with our mindset. So many of us have to rewire our brains and master our minds to say and know what's possible. So for me, what that looked like is, and 1 year ago when I was sitting there and was just like, I feel like I can do this. Can I do this? Getting those thoughts of like can, should, would, to I am, I'm doing, I will be, and I will become. January 15, 2020 was the first day I'd ever sat down and actually added up all of my debt. And I just said, I'm going to be debt free by December 31st. I had no idea how I was going to get there. Like I told you, at my last job, my last income, it would have been possible, but I would have had to change my lifestyle drastically. So I really believe that that's where it starts. It really starts with us not saying those things to ourselves, like, I'm going to be paying off this debt forever. I'm broke. All of these negative scripts really do influence the steps that we take. And I would argue, the way that abundance and energy flows to us, right? Not to get too spiritual, but I'm a big believer that kind of what we put out, what we speak from our mouths becomes our reality. And then, starting to get tactical is you have to have a budget. You have to have some kind of system of understanding how much money do you have coming in and what are your expenses. What you could definitely do if you sit there and realize, whoa, I don't have much money left over. When I do that simple calculation of what's coming in versus what's coming out, it's what can we do to lower some of these expenses? Can we downsize in this time of being remote? Can we move back home. I know a lot of people don't want to hear that, but like, can we do it? You know, I'll be totally frank about the fact, yes, I was a high earner, but I also had 2 roommates in New York City, right? Like you know, there were definitely luxuries that I gave up in this journey because I wanted to prioritize becoming debt free, right? I don't have a car. I don't have a car note. You know, just things that I think become commonplace for I think a lot of us are worth rethinking if you're really serious about becoming aggressive about paying off your debt. And then on the other side, there's also beauty in saying we need to make more money. Can we monetize our skills? Can we monetize our Instagrams? That was something I'd never done before 2020, but like putting a digital product out there and making money passively by selling on Instagram is a reality for all of us, right? Can we turn any of the things that we're doing already and not getting paid for into another stream of income? Can we find out other ways to make money outside of our job, or even at our job? Can we negotiate to get paid more, to find those jobs that are going to be more lucrative? I think all of those things are worth considering. And then I think from there, it's just staying organized. It's creating a plan for yourself and a payoff plan for yourself, whether you're going to like tackle your highest interest debt first, you're going to tackle your smallest amounts first, whatever it is, creating a plan for yourself to say, every month, this is my goal in terms of how much I need to pay off. And I'm going to make sure that I do that. That was what I did. It was like when I get paid, all of my bills and everything gets paid before I allow myself to have any fun, have any whatever, I need to send this debt payment, right? Because once it's gone, you can't make money come out of nowhere, right? So I think those are the things I would say.
You're talking about planning and budgeting and turning, wishful thinking into positive affirmations and tapping into your skills. But the reality is a lot of people have faced job loss, unemployment, foreclosures, business loss. What do you say to those people who are really struggling and who might have that positive thinking and the mindset that you have, but don't have the means?
Yeah. I would say in that case, and this is a real conversation that I had with a friend, is that it's okay if you have to prioritize other things, if you have to just prioritize survival right now, over kind of aggressively paying off debt. I would say to anyone in those situations, one is definitely figuring out, do you have enough cash savings in terms of an emergency fund? Because I think that's like the bare minimum. Before we even start talking about paying off debt, getting financially free, it's like, do you have enough cash saved that you could rely on truly in case of emergency? I think that would be where you can absolutely start. I would also say it really wouldn't hurt talking to accredited financial advisor. I would definitely recommend everyone reach out to my financial advisor, PJ Douglas Sands of DS3 Financial Group. She is an independent financial advisor, but someone that I've worked with, and she just has a wealth of information on what you can do, what are the things that you can take advantage of in terms of some of the financial assistance that's available to people who have been furloughed, that need healthcare in this time, and just some of the other things that I think, us common folks who aren't kind of in the finance industry can take advantage of. I would say that asking for help does not mean that, that you don't have things together. I would say for me, that was where I started. Honestly, before I even paid off all this debt, it was like working with someone who was an expert that was like a financial coach for me. And what's great about my financial advisor, she doesn't charge for her services. So I would say that that's something that can be available to anyone listening who just feels like, wow, I am just really in a tough spot right now. Seeking out that help from someone who's going to be able to kind of give you a lot of different options is going to be critical as well.
They're fighting now on Capitol Hill to give us a $2,000 stimulus check. So people are going to come into that wealth here soon in 2021. And we already know Friday's the first of the month, the first of the year, 2021. People have been waiting for 8 months to get these stimulus checks and these unemployment benefits to come back again. What type of financial advice would you give to someone getting these relief checks?
Now, this is a question that I love because there has been a really big conversation about this in my world in terms of the personal finance IG community. So, on one hand, I totally agree with this notion that like people should do whatever the hell they want with this money, right? Like we have seen over the course of this year that personal finance is so personal, and clearly some of the politicians who are making these decisions are not thinking about the everyday people like you and me and how we were expected to survive on, you know, the assistance that was handed out nearly 9 months ago, right? It's unfathomable when you think about other developed nations and the type of financial assistance that they've received during this time, right? So on one hand, I say people should do whatever the hell they want. If you want to put it all into Bitcoin, if you want to invest it, if you want to put it down on a down payment on a real, whatever, do whatever you want to do with it. On the other hand, I would say, from my perspective, it's what you should start with is absolutely starting with like covering your basic necessities. Can you, if this money is going to help you cover your housing expenses, immediate financial obligations, anything that's going to have to do with like your health, I would say that those are, I would say prioritize that. From there, I would say very few of us have what I already mentioned before, an emergency fund. I know that isn't sexy to just say, oh, I'm just going to put this money on the side for emergencies, but so many of us need it. So many of us, I would say the majority of Americans, based on the statistic that I saw, don't even have $1,000 saved for an emergency, right? So $600 could be the starting point for your emergency fund, just
That's
to say,
make or break.
Make or break. That could literally be make
and
or break.
2,000, more than tripling that could really help you a lot in the long run.
Yeah. And then I would say from there, if you have your basic necessities covered, if you have cash already saved, I would say from there, $600, $2,000, and any amount in between can go a long way to helping you build wealth. And some of the ways that I would think about it if I received a stimulus check and had those other things covered is I wouldn't even think about investing in picking stocks and just kind of saying, I'm going to put it all in Tesla and see what happens. I would be really strategic about putting that money, into an ETF or into an index fund that was going to track the overall growth of the U.S. stock exchange or another index like the NASDAQ or Russell 1000. And for me, why I love to invest in low-cost index funds is because it gives me broad exposure to all of these amazing companies like Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, all the ones that I feel like so many of us want to own a piece of, but also reduces my risk because I'm not kind of betting on the success of one company. I'm betting on the overall growth of the S&P 500 or whatever index I'm tracking. So how you can do that is if you wanted to take your money, I would say put it into a tax advantage account, right? When you invest in your 401k, your 403b, when you put it into your health savings account, when you put it into a Roth or traditional IRA, you're getting tax advantages that are going to help you in 2021 and also help you when you do withdraw that money, right? And you know, we could get into it, but I think some of us feel like, oh, I'm not going to put it into a retirement account because I want that money to be liquid. But what you don't know is there actually are loopholes to get around some of these limits if you are savvy and kind of know the ways around it. For example, investing in a Roth IRA, 5 years, your contributions, you can withdraw to buy other assets. I know people who have withdrawn from their Roth IRA and their 401k to buy mixed use property and have put that money back, right? So I think that is something that I would recommend. But of course, it's starting with cover your basic necessities, your bills, things that are going to help you survive. Think about stashing that cash for emergencies. It's not sexy, but it will keep you from having to rely on credit cards for an emergency. And then invest in tax advantage accounts. Like nothing sexier than paying less taxes. That is, in general, the biggest expense that most of us will encounter, especially if you're in that middle class or you're a high earner. So why not lessen your tax burden now and later when you're ready to kind of take out those funds for retirement?
It sounds like you're talking about a lot of different strategies to become financially free in the long term as we look to the future, not just 2021. but building some of that generational wealth and that long-term success. Now, we've talked about becoming debt free. How do we turn that into something that can maintain and sustain us for years to come?
Yeah. So freedom for me was the starting point for me to really get serious about wealth building. When you have debt, it's eating at your ability to build wealth, right? Every time that you are paying down debt that you may have accrued months or years in the past, you're robbing your future self of the ability to actually take that money and invest in something that's going to generate cash or equity right now. So for me, I see it as um, when you lessen your debt burden, the money that you would typically be putting towards those debt payments can go towards investments or savings that are going to, one, potentially generate an income for you now, right? When you invest in companies like AT&T, for example, which pays a dividend, you are getting literal income right now, right? So when you have enough shares of a company that pays a dividend, like an AT&T, like a Visa, like an American Express, like a Simon Property Group, which is a REIT, a real estate investment trust, you're actually getting a piece of the pie now. Like a Disney, right? You're actually getting a piece of the pie now. And the more shares that you have, the bigger that quarterly or however often they pay dividend payout is, right? I follow a couple folks that I admire in terms of, self-made millionaire investors or whatever. And they talk about, yeah, okay, this quarter, yeah, I made $10,000 passively because I own shares of this company that pays a dividend, right? I think for me, that's what really gets me excited, right? It's like not this idea that you have to be just hoarding money away for some off future that we may never get to, but like, no, literally being strategic about the things that you invest in can also generate you an income now, right? If you're someone who's really serious about real estate, right? When you don't have debt, that opens up your opportunity for you to be able to say, okay, I have the 5% to put down on this rental property. I have the whatever, income and in terms of income and debt to income ratio to be able to qualify for some of these FHA loans, right? So many of us talk about wanting to do these things, but until we get a handle of the money that we already have and the financial picture that we already either inherited or put ourselves into, we're not going to be able to get to those steps. So that's kind of how I think about it. I think so many of us are having these conversations on the regular around investing in entrepreneurship in real estate. And we see this vision for ourselves. But then when I see people kind of be real about the fact that, like, do you have credit card debt that you're just kind of like letting sit there and it's generating 18 or 22% of interest? That's money that could be going towards your rental property, right? Like we got to be intentional about the things that we say we want to do and the decisions that we're making for our finances right now.
Well, you're very intentional in your lifestyle blog, Flynanced.
Yes.
You started this blog to inspire people to become debt free and to build wealth while also having the freedom to travel around the world. That's something that you really preach and that you harp on a lot. Your blog is at the intersection of traveling and financial freedom. The airline industry was hit hard. You look at people, having restrictions to travel abroad to different countries due to the coronavirus. What's your advice as we wrap things up here to people who are fearful of flying and traveling and think that they need to budget crazy just to explore themselves and explore the world?
Yeah, I would say that fears around traveling are totally warranted. I am definitely not someone, even in my niche, who's practicing, preaching to people to do what makes them uncomfortable, right? People should absolutely travel when they feel it is safe for them to do so. But what I would say is that we also have to rethink how we're thinking about travel. Travel isn't just hopping on a flight and going overseas, though obviously I love to do that kind of traveling. Traveling also looks like exploring our own backyards, right? I think we, especially folks who are on our debt-free journeys or who just want to be more financially intentional, also have to get comfortable with this idea that, like, there is a lot to explore right within our cities and our states in our country, right? That getting in a, you know, in a car with maybe just you and the folks that you've been quarantining with, and just taking a scenic drive and a scenic road trip is exploring the world, right? Exploring, you know, maybe like a small bed and breakfast in your state, or kind of driving to another part of your state, or if you're feeling comfortable taking the Amtrak. I've traveled on Amtrak quite a few times in 2020 for incredibly low prices, like $29 one way for me to go to Philadelphia and just kind of like walk around and, you know, just kind of see things, right? I think we have to be creative with how we think about travel, and not just think that travel has to be one set way, hopping on a plane, staying in a hotel, yada, yada. It can also look like taking a road trip, being creative with our destinations, exploring places that, hey, maybe have been in our backyards this whole time, and also supporting local businesses that really need our help right now, right? I know there's been a lot of great exciting things that I've learned just on Instagram by following like Black owned hotel brands and businesses that are desperately looking for, you know, support local restaurants, right? Travel can also look like exploring new restaurants in your neighborhood where, you know, if you feel like they're, you know, honoring social distancing protocols, why not support, or why not order takeout? Why, like, let's get creative and kind of think about exploration in ways beyond just air travel. I think that that would kind of be my advice. But, you know, I think so many of us know that we want to travel in the near future when it's safe to. I know a lot of people are kind of waiting for that kind of green light. What I would say to any of those people is that creating a plan to travel abundantly and travel without debt starts now. It doesn't start when we're ready to travel. It starts now. It starts with creating that travel fund, opening up that travel fund and saying, okay, right now I can afford to set aside $50 a month. And that's what I'm going to start with. And I'm not going to, you know, that's what I'm going to do before I kind of allocate my money anywhere else. I'm going to make sure it goes in my travel fund. That's a way to make sure that we're ready, that we're taking advantage of this time, so that when it is safe to travel, we're not just kind of, you know, going back into the old and bad financial habits that may have put us into debt or put us into holes in the past. So that's how I think about it. It's rethinking what travel looks like, and it's also getting prepared now, starting to save for travel now, even if it's something that we don't do until the end of 2021 or 2022. You gotta get ready. So, you know, you gotta stay ready so you have to get ready.
Well, I want to thank you for inspiring us to take these leaps of faith
Yes.
and to inspire us to be more exploratory in our financial and travel lifestyles. So, someone who has a blog exploring that intersection between the two at a time in 2020 where people are in debt and facing financial hardships and also fearful of traveling. I call her the financial guru, Cinneah El-Amin, who's on a quest to help us become financially free while traveling all across the world. And you can follow her on Instagram, and I'll let her shout out all of her pages and her blogs and everything like that. But I really do appreciate you coming on and having this discussion with us and with the viewers. Is there anything else you want to leave us with?
Yes, thank you, AJ. This was so great. I really appreciate you opening me up to your audience another time. Yeah, for anyone who wants to follow more of kind of how I'm thinking about travel in these times and how you can travel for the low, be sure to follow me on Instagram at fly.nance. That's FLY.NANCED. And if you're someone who's like, okay, maybe she's talking to me, I need to start thinking about a plan to be able to travel for the low so that I can get ready now, so that I don't have to be in a predicament where I'm trying to scramble to get my money together later. Definitely check out my course. I've created an affordable video course where I walk you through how to get started from creating a travel fund to finding the best sites for travel deals to making more money so that you can travel freely, to how you can even travel for free. And there's a lot of planning involved on how you can use credit cards and use them effectively to actually be able to travel for the ultimate low. And if you're curious about all of that, definitely check out my course. You can find the link to my course in my bio on Instagram. And be sure to look out for more from me and my blog in 2021, flynanced.com, where I'm actually going to be documenting what I'm doing in 2021. And that looks like living abroad for some of the year. So if you're definitely curious about that, I would love to connect with you.
Well, thank you so much. If Cinneah can do it, we can do it too. The financial guru, traveling abroad all 2021. Everybody who wanted to go live in Turks and Caicos and all those other exotic places, follow her right now. And she's the best at, showcasing the travel lifestyle. Thank you so much.
Thank you.